Right,
oh, could go Irish. There's that one. Feckin. I'm not even going to attempt the accent.
No.
It's just going on the internet.
Yep. You're welcome to give it a go.
Yeah. Oh, I feckin' hate. No, that was terrible. Frolicking. A frolicking hate. Okay, I like this. I would like this to continue in the chat whilst I talk.
So that was probably the weirdest intro I've done so far for one of these videos. So welcome back. This is our talk. Our next talk is I Frolicking Hate Email, and you should too, by technologist, futurist, and problem hacker Aaron Taylor. So away you go.
Thank you. None of those I will be doing today. The year is 1971. It's an uncommonly warm summer at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And that uncommonly warm summer is a thing that's going to continue for the next 500 years. We can say that comfortably from this point in the future. Meet Ray Tomlinson, engineer at UCI. He's about to merge some code from a program called CopyNet, a program for moving files across a network, with another program called SendMessage. That's CopyNet, C-P-Y-N-E-T, SendMessage, S-N-D, M-S-G. So anyone who thought that they were cool dropping consonants, well, there's some precedent for that. But in merging these two code bases, he's going to create the basis for a system that is literally going to screw future generations. He couldn't have known. He didn't know. And hopefully you'll see shortly that, well, things kind of got way out of hand. My name is Aaron Taylor. I like tech and stuff. Over the next little while, I'm gonna lay out in as much detail as I can over the next 20 minutes the technological, maybe sociological, psychological, economic. I couldn't quite get into biological, but all of these reasons why I hate email. And at the end of this, even if you're like, yay, email, pro email, maybe you're a Gmail engineer or something like that, hopefully at the end of this, you're going to hate email a little bit as well. But don't worry, I'm not going to leave you stewing in this petri dish of funk. I'm going to show you how we can break the bonds of our email as well. But let's start with some high-level numbers, because I know that we need high-level numbers, and I can't just be a guy here ranting about how I can't achieve inbox zero. So let's start with this number: 22,690,000,000 dollars, which is still, like, basically for me, that's an infinite amount of money. This is how much the world spends combating email spam every year. 22 billion. I could buy a country for that number, and this is inflation adjusted to like 2021 value. Here's another number: 5 hours a day is how long on average the average American spends checking email. I don't know what the average kind of Brit or German or whatever spends. I imagine it's around the same. There's a lot of great jokes that could be made there about. Anyway, but we won't do that. Like, it roughly breaks down to like 3 hours a day doing work email stuff, and then 2 hours a day doing home email stuff. But imagine what you could do with 5 extra hours a day. 16,433 tons. this is going to make you feel a little guilty, because if you've ever written an email back saying, okay, thanks, yeah, then you're literally killing the planet. I'm sorry, it's science. This is the amount of carbon produced just in the UK per year by thank you emails. And there's another big number, which is actually quite terrifying. 12,536,948,299 was the amount of money that was stolen globally and reported via spear phishing attacks between 2013 and 2018. Spear phishing, another means of, well, it's another method of email spam, but it's a lot more targeted. You pretend to be some high up CEO or some C-suite person. You ask someone lower to do something for you, or even someone of equal amounts. So those are like some of the high level figures which kind of provide a basis for why I hate email. And just to answer quickly, we spend 200 more. This is someone in the chat. We spend 200 more avoiding the attacks than we lose to them. We might as well just pay up. We've got to remember as well, though, that like these kind of spear phishing attacks are relatively new, and also not particularly kind of, you know, there's only so many big companies that you can kind of throw these against, whereas spam in general affects everyone with an email address. So that might explain the discrepancy in the numbers. Anyway, I'm going to move swiftly on to having laid out a sufficiently droll and kind of disastrous start to the talk. I'm now going to move swiftly on to part one of the talk, which is entitled "Why I Hate SMTP." We've got a nice little quote there from Ron Burgundy. Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast. So I know it's painting quite a bleak picture, and you might be preparing an argument along the lines of something like, email is a tool. It's not us that's the problem. It's how we use email. Email itself isn't the problem. And you would be right. But if we look at email from a technical perspective, and send mail to absolutely Duncan in the chat, he knows exactly where I'm going with this. If we look at email from a technical perspective, it kind of leads to the conclusion, when you look at how we're using it today, and you look at like kind of how it's used, there's a very good argument for why it should be ripped down completely and rebuilt from the ground up. And that should have happened before it got to the stage where it currently is. So let's go back to MIT. Let's go back to 1971. Let's go back to Ray Tomlinson, and he's probably enjoying that nice warm summer with the things that people enjoyed in 1970s, probably some kind of bizarre cocktail of mind-altering substances. But let's look at what he was doing. Let's look at the context in which he was working when email was created. And let's look at what you would have needed to do to send an email back in 1971, let's say late 1971. So it's 3 steps, basically. Step 1, you need to get yourself a PDP-10. This is made by a company, DEC, DC. So first off, you need to procure one of those. And just for those wondering, that whole thing is the computer. And then there's a little teletype terminal at the start there, where you that's where your keyboard is. Step 2, you need to connect to the ARPANET. Now this is what the ARPANET looked like in 1977. In 1971, it was a lot smaller. Sorry, like maybe like 5, 6, maybe 10 universities. And then step 3, well, you send cat pics now. Like, I think, well, okay, maybe not, because it was still text only. But you know, if you complete the first 2, then you can kind of send emails. And the cat pics obviously came a little bit later. This is my cat sending an email. It's not my cat at all. I don't know whose cat it is. I just Googled cat. But let's just say that you did manage to procure a PDP-10, which at the time probably would have cost what you paid for your house, what you paid for your neighbors, what your neighbor paid for their house. Maybe if you sold all the houses on your city block, you could buy a PDP-10. And then you've got to connect that to the ARPANET. The ARPANET. This is the precursor to the internet. And that's probably more impossible than actually getting yourself a PDP-10. This is the ARPA network. ARPA, the Advanced Research Projects Agency, an agency that came into being at the hand of Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1958 in response to the Soviets sending Sputnik into space. It put Sputnik in space, and the response was to create an agency to research how they respond to that. I'm getting too into it. That means to connect to the ARPANET, you needed to connect to one of the most, if not the most secure computer network at the time on the planet, with a computer the size of your bedroom. Trust on the ARPANET was high. The barrier to entry was unimaginable. And so that meant that when Tomlinson et al. And the other people that were in his team and the people that came after him, when they were working on systems for sending messages, when they were working on what would become email, all they really needed to do was determine that you were a user on a computer connected to this network, this physical thing, like no Wi-Fi there or anything. Like, you had access to that computer, you were cleared, you had a user on that computer, you were cleared, and so I can just send you stuff. And the protocols that he was using to push these messages across the network, very similar in principle to kind of FTP. Your message box on your system was just a collection of files, and if you're 2 people working on the same computer, you can just move a file into their user space, into their message box, and then they can read it when they get there. And so trust was not only high, it was unthinkable that you could have someone accessing this who wasn't actually authorized. And this idea of a high trust system, it would go on and it would continue, because remember, like, the World Wide Web was invented in what, 91, something like that, off the top of my head. So that, and an email wouldn't actually be formalized in a protocol until 1982. So we've got a high trust system for sending messages in place for 19 years. And in 82, the world gets together and they hold hands and we rejoice as we give birth to SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. It's very good at helping you send a message from your local computer to someone in another room, another city, another country, the other side of the world. but it had a flaw, and that was that it literally contained no provisions to authenticating the sender of that message. The only thing that was needed for me to send a message was your mail address, was your mailbox, was your username at whatever host you were using at the time. The @ symbol was one of Tomlinson's ideas. It was the user at the domain, which might have been local, which then we went on and it literally became a user at the web domain. So we've got a system with zero authentication needed to send it, that the users of that system will probably inherently trust because, well, hey, this is still a time, 1982, it's still a time. Who's got email? Who's got email? Really? Who has got it? Who's got a computer that can like afford what it would cost to dial up to the internet at the time? But trust is a strange thing because humans have a trait. They have a there's a motif. There's a way that we do things that seems to repeat itself again and again and again, and it becomes more and more apparent when we take technology into the fold. And it's a pattern. And what it is it basically goes, invent something, use it, spread it, proliferate from it, more recently profit from it. And then once it's embedded, once it's made that change to how we do things, then you go, well, I wonder if that was safe. I wonder if that was sensible. And this is basically the story of what happened with email. It proliferated to a point where it became ubiquitous based on a system that was fundamentally not designed to be used by the masses, by everyone, that was without any authentication necessary. And as a result of that, well, some clever people at various times in history have realized that, well, actually, it's like sending a letter and signing it with the name of someone you trust. I don't know, your bank account, whoever, and knowing that there's a very good chance that the person receiving that message is going to go, oh yeah, that is definitely from my bank. And so spam began. And so the use, shall we say, for nefarious means began. And it got to such a point that in 2003, the United States literally had to legislate against the illicit and illegal use of email with their CAN-SPAM Act. Did we fix SMTP? No, we didn't. What we did is we gave it crutches. We created new systems, and originally these were people like Yahoo and Cisco working to try and figure out how they could stop their customers, their users, falling victim to the abuse that was coming over email. So we had domain keys from Yahoo. We had I can't remember what the original IAM, but we came up with a bunch of other systems that use existing systems to fix the fundamental problem with authentication and trust in SMTP. So we've got SPF, we've got Sender Policy Framework, we've got DKIM, Domain Keys Identified Mail, we've got DMARC, which is just a ridiculous acronym and I refuse to learn it. But all of these things fail to solve the original organic underlying problem that SMTP was not a safe protocol for public consumption and not a safe basis to to then build an industry on top of. It doesn't have trust at its core. I understand why, and it kind of sucks because of that. Part 2. I'm aware of the time, so I won't spend too much time on this. Looking at John Murray's comment, and social media, if that's about trust, yeah. And I think social media and trust is about to get a lot worse. But that's another talk. I'll be back in the summer. Part 2 is email hates you. As an email, what, an email? God, losing it. Quote there from Donkey. Part 2, we need to go back to 2012. Some researchers from the University of California at Irvine, in conjunction with the US Army, embarked on a peculiar study. They said, hey guys, wonder what would happen if we stopped some of these information workers in the army, information workers like you and I, people that spend their time and their work using computers to get things done. We are the information working society. What happens if we stop them from using email? What happens if they are not allowed to use email? So what they did, they rigged these people up with heart monitors, and they put a little program on their computer to register what windows they were looking at and how many times they switched those windows. Then they had a control group, just people like carry on using email, just wear the heart monitor, we'll put the software on your computer. And they watched them for like a week or 2 weeks or something like that. Let's guess what the results were. Any guesses? Anyone in chat? I'm not going to wait for anyone to type. I'm going to skip on. Quote, we found that when you remove email from workers' lives, they multitask less and experience less stress. Email hates you. They found that in the study, the average person with access to email task switched, so they swapped windows 37 times an hour. The people that they banned from using email, that could not access email on their computers, they only task switch 18 times an hour. That's greater focus. We can draw a few conclusions from there as to where the stress comes from as well. Because email promotes, if email promotes task switching, which is what it looks like, then email is promoting multitasking. Okay. And multitasking is the ability to screw everything up simultaneously. We know from so many different studies that not only are we not good at multitasking, we should definitely not be multitasking. We should be active single taskers. And so you're in a workplace environment, and access to your email, which is largely at work, it's a task list. Let's be honest, it's a task list. So you've got tasks coming in whilst you're trying to do your task. So you're now trying to do 2 tasks and your productivity is going down. The number of mistakes you're making is going up. So what's that gonna do to your levels of stress? You're getting less done in more time, worse than if you were just not accessing your email. What's that going to do to their stress? What's that going to do to their productivity? And one of the reasons that email stresses you, even outside of this multitasking, I'm getting less done, is because you just never know when the next email is going to come. And this brings me on to the reason why, well, the reason why social media works just so well. Variable rewards. Variable rewards is seen pretty much across any animal that we've tested that has a system a biological system of saying, hey, this reward, it feels great, this is good, is subject to the variable rewards schedule. Dopamine, absolutely, John. Social media uses this to great effect. Every time you see the little white number in a little red circle, every time that goes up by 1, that's a little hit of dopamine. That's a little reward for you. You've just been included in something that is interesting. Maybe it mentions you. Feel good about that, mostly. You don't know when the next one's going to come. And this is the most addictive way that rewards can be given. Don't, you give a dog a treat at the same time every evening, like we do with our dog, and now he expects it. And about 8 in the evening, he will bark at you for his treat. If we were giving it at variable times, he would do anything we said because he wouldn't know when it was coming next. And, for humans, this piques things like our curiosity and things like that. Now, that's the kind of positive aspect of it. But when you look at workplace emails, and if you're one of these people that look forward to new emails in your inbox, then bully for you in a work environment, because for most people, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb here, for most people that are in employed work, emails kind of bring bad news. They kind of suck generally. They're kind of someone going, where's that report? Or someone being like, why isn't this done? Or, oh, here's a whole bunch of new stuff that is being delegated to you. So not only in the workplace are you addicted to your email, but you're also addicted to the bad news that it brings. And this is just one aspect of it, because it used to be back in the day when work was over, well, you stood up, you walked out, you got in your car, you drove home. But now, when you go home, your work's in your pocket. It's on one of these. And so that brings about anticipatory stress. There's another study, quote, what we find is that people who feel they have to respond to emails in their off hours become emotionally exhausted, partially because they can't detach from work. They're not able to separate from work when they go home, which is when they are supposed to be recovering their resources. This creates anticipatory stress. We can't get away from work. We can't just put it down anymore. It is everywhere. If your boss is worried, then you're worried. If your boss emails you, then he knows your phone's in your pocket. He knows that buzzer has gone off. He's expecting a response. You're expecting to respond. You're hooked on the bad news. What happens when you go on holiday? It's the same thing. 25% of millennials check their work email when they're on holiday. Email hates us, and it's causing more stress, lower productivity. I don't have the time to go into all the social ways that email doesn't work, but suffice to say, my conclusion is that email sucks for all these reasons and more. Now, I'm not just going to leave it here because I'm aware of time. I am going to give us some ways how we can get out of it, how we can get email to unsuck, how we can use it better. So it's here to stay, and we've just got to deal with it. Let's be pragmatic. So part 3, and it's short. Here's what we do. Step 1, batch read email. Set a specific point in time every day where you read and respond to email. Okay? Quote, limiting the number of times people check their email on a day-to-day lesson, on a per day, lessen tension during a particular and important activity and lowered overall day-to-day stress. If you're checking email more than 3 times a day, you are bringing unnecessary stress into your life. Batch read email. That's step 1. Well, how do you batch read email? Oh, but stuff's going on all the time, blah, 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 blah. You got to train people. Step 2, auto respond to all. Set this as your auto responder to everyone. Everyone gets this. You need to train people when to contact you via email. Auto respond to all. Here's an example of an email that you can send in your autoresponder. Hi there, thanks for your email. Please be aware that for efficiency and productivity, and everyone wants you to be efficient and productive, only check and respond to emails 3 times a day. You might even want to list the times of day that you respond to email, between 8:30 and 9, between 1 and 2, whatever. If you require a faster response, you're not cutting them off completely. If you require a fast response, please call me on, oh, blah, 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 blah. How many people have spent a morning sending and receiving emails for a conversation that could have literally just happened in a few minutes? There is that question as well on carbon emissions. Thanks, Dave. Good point there, actually. I would say that your email carbon emissions are probably going up, but your productivity is also going through the roof. So the amount of time that you have to spend there doing tasks and arguing on answering emails, you probably net overall reduce your number of the number of emails that get sent, because people learn to go, oh, actually, I'm not going to email David. I'm gonna pick up the phone instead. So step 3, and how we break this email chain, it lies on us. We need to think of email as a last resort. I very cleverly left the text in the last one, in the last slide in there, to make a point. It's totally not a mistake. But email, let's think of it as a last resort. Let's use it to ask very terse questions that only need like clarification. Let's use it to, I know email gets used as ask covering. Well, you can see here that I did ask X and then they responded with Y and I asked X again. No, get on the phone, talk face to face, jump on Zoom, whatever. Like, have that conversation, follow it up with an email, make email a follow-up tool. Let people know, like, you need to be disciplined. It's easy to not talk to people face to face. It's easy to not do that. That is why email has got out of hand. You can't be using email for conversations. You can't be using emails for like checkups or whatever. Like, we've got hundreds of thousands of years built into us for getting information across to each other. Like, use that. You can't read tone in an email. There is so much information that gets lost. It's a last resort. Use it as a follow-up tool, or if you only need a very specific answer to a very clear question. Email is a tool. With great power comes great responsibility. We need to be better with email for more reasons than I've listed today. I'll part with a cautionary tale. XKCD, how can you not have an XKCD comic in here? A cautionary tale, yeah. And just to sort of round off, because I know I've had some strong words this evening about email, but like everything, like I am a technologist, I'm a futurist, I'm a sociologist, and the problem isn't what was done or the reasons it was done. The problem is how we've used it, and that could never have been anticipated. Email was a natural progression, and it was also the work of a pioneer, of someone who has gone down in history of the level of a Tim Berners-Lee or a Vint Cerf or something. So I just want to just take a moment and say, although we're using it wrong, I want to say thank you to Ray Tomlinson for giving us this mighty tool. And I want to apologize on behalf of all of us that are using it wrong, and hope that we may realize its power to actually improve things for everyone everywhere. And that's me. If you want to reach out with me, catch me in chat. And then maybe we can connect on WhatsApp and some messaging. But that's me.
I've got so many things to say about this, and I think I think a lot of people do.
Can I briefly nip to the loo? Is that okay?
Okay, we'll start the discussion without you. Oh yeah, I don't know about any of you, but I felt like that was being aimed at me. Everything he says.
Yeah, that was good.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's funny, some of it I was like, yeah, I need to implement that or start doing that. There's a few things I can't possibly check my emails 3 times a day. I couldn't possibly. Does anyone else have that kind of thing or are you going, no, definitely going to follow that?
Yeah, I ended up switching mine to only be collected every hour.
What during the talk, or you've done this in the past?
Oh, I've done it in the past, but that seemed to work better.
Yeah.
Than just getting them all the time.
So how did you do that? You set something up to do that, or you just trained?
Yeah, in your phone, you can set up what frequency to obtain emails.
Ooh.
So how frequently it grabs it. You can do it instantly or every 15 minutes, every hour. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all right. We're getting back from each other. I was going to ask actually. So I've got, I think I've got a bunch of pressure managers, loads of people do, but because you made a joke at the end. Oh yeah, if you want to chat to me on WhatsApp. How is that any different? Is it because it's more of a social thing rather than work, or do you think we need to be taking ourselves away from those things as well?
Yeah, so that is interesting because it is a bit of a conundrum. I think there's a cultural thing about instant messaging systems, and there's also a lot of UX that has gone into making it fast and responsive. WhatsApp has the 2 little ticks, so does Signal, and you can tell when something's kind of been delivered, but also I think the form factor, it doesn't lend itself, and the nature with which people use it, it doesn't lend itself to writing essays, and it's also inherently, when you get WhatsApp out of the box, the first thing you can do is send a message to one other person. It's a bit harder to make big groups of people, whereas something like if you're sat looking at Outlook, you've got you just type in a couple of letters oh yeah, oh no, I'm gonna CC this group of people, I can group people, I'll add that group of people. So there's a lot of things about kind of instant messaging that makes it more based on sort of one-to-one, and I think there's a lot of that training that makes it relatively safe.
I do think though, because I have clients who speak to me sometimes through WhatsApp. So I'd be curious to see if in 10 years' time, you're giving this exact same talk, but it's now on different channels. So it does feel like everything is moving that direction. I don't know if anyone else has found this, but it does feel like we're kind of tackling it now, and then we're going to end up just
Yeah.
looking at it later.
I do wonder if it's a generational thing. I mean, I've got 3 kids, 18 down to 9. And the 2 girls, so the youngest one doesn't have a phone or anything. We don't ever give them phones until they're 11. Secondary school is when they get a phone. But the 2 older ones, especially the eldest, who's literally yesterday turned 18, she is very Instagram focused. And there's this weird thing where if you've received an email, received a notice on Instagram or what's the other one, Snapchat, and you've looked at it, you're not allowed to not reply. That's really bad. And I don't get that. That doesn't work for me at all. I don't get it. But it's almost a cardinal sin. She can't not reply. Even if it means being rude to everyone who's sat around the table with you or whatever, it's you can't do that. So I do wonder if the whole approach to this is going to happen. And literally, my daughter will be doing Aaron's job in a couple of years' time, saying, "Oh, Instagram is evil."
That is interesting though, because I'm exactly the same. I have the same thing of you must reply, and I get annoyed when somebody else, you can see the ticks, they've read it, they haven't responded. I hadn't considered that it could be generational. Is that the right word? What was the word you used? Yeah, because I'm a millennial. So I think I'm wondering if that is the case. If that is that we've sort of conditioned ourselves like that, and that, I hadn't even considered that. Oh, I could just not respond, and that wouldn't be rude. It's never even crossed my mind.
Alex, can I then just apologise on how tardy I am responding to something?
Well, you have been useful in that respect, because I do notice that you don't sometimes respond for a few weeks. And I've initially I was like, oh God, he hates me. But after you gave like the second or third Code Harbour talk, I thought, okay, maybe this is just him. So maybe you're just training me on how to let go of technology. That's really what this is about, isn't it? You're not forgetting.
I did the exact same thing with my friends back on MSN.
I don't know if I can forgive you. Oh.
I was known for not responding to people for weeks.
This is one of those things though, isn't it? Because like if you're in a room with someone, and I know that's not possible like currently, but if you're in a room with someone and you say something, if they're stood in front of you making eye contact, you're definitely having a conversation with them, and you say something, maybe it's a question, and then they just turn around and walk away, then there is definitely something wrong. But that's the framework that we live in with technology. That's how we interpret things. So we said something, our brains are going, oh, you're in a conversation with them. Sending them a message on the phone is exactly the same as having their attention in real life. And then that silence is like they've just turned around and walked away, and you're like, they must hate me. I've had the same thing. Anyone who has the misfortune of like actually messaging me on WhatsApp will know I'm full of really bad jokes that I find hilarious. And so like if I send a bad joke then like and get nothing for like a day or something, I'll be like, do you hate me? Do you hate me for that joke? But it's not the case. It's just like it's a phone, like you put it down, you walk out the room. It's easy.
It's funny because someone said something in the chat, and I think that's kind of what links it. You said the trick is you don't open it until you're ready, and that's a big thing that because when I learned that you could mute conversations, I started doing that because I know that sometimes I'd open something, go, oh well, I now have to respond, I'm going to forget. I think that is part of is this weird thing of instantly you see that number, you look at it, then you have to respond, and it's training yourself to go, no, I will do that later. But maybe it's just a case of not checking it as frequently, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess there's another thing that's just come to mind, which is like this is all about communication, and we've made communicating so easy that we've kind of, that friend that has like, I'm probably pointing at myself, that is very good at having those streams of consciousness. And like you could deal with that because you could then go away and you would both go home at the end of the night or whatever. Like it's got so easy to communicate now. It's we're getting shortcuts to people's streams of consciousness, and you're getting full ego and everything like that. And we just gotta learn to accept that people are doing other stuff. When landlines were the only thing, and I remember growing up, and there was only the landline, and then I soon started dominating that, dialing up and playing Team Fortress Classic.
Get off the internet, yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to say that was what I
Don't pick it up now.
yeah, I won that battle. It went from get off the internet to okay, you're paying for the phone bill now. Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, but it's too easy to communicate, and therefore we need to be a lot more vigilant, because we're very good at using what's easy. We've got every incentive. We've got 200,000 years of being Homo sapiens, plus however many millions of years of evolution that's saying do the easy thing, don't expend energy. Why go and walk to your friend's house when you can just send them a WhatsApp? I've WhatsApp people from the cellar that are only 2 floors above me.
My sister used to video call me from upstairs. When she first got I remember doing it, I was like, oh Ellie, have you gone out? No, I'm upstairs. Why? Come down the stairs.
Here we go, Leela saying, yeah, I text my housemates when they're upstairs. It's so easy. It's so easy, and it's yeah, we just need to be vigilant.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing, but the technology isn't there to limit or distract, or it's not there to change our behavior. We need to be conscious participants in it, and we need better ways of managing it, because it can't manage us.
So Aaron, do you think that during all these lockdowns that the problems got worse?
We can only really tell. That's a good question, but I think we can only really tell afterwards, because right now, Zoom, WhatsApp is my WhatsApp group with all my uni friends has been an absolute lifeline to, I don't know. There's that thing where you're oh, I don't see a person often, but I know I can. And because they're close, I don't make so much of an effort. But as soon as that's taken away, you're oh crap, I really need to make an effort. And WhatsApp with the lockdown has been, great, because it's we can all interact, and then we've spent more time together in that way interacting than we have previously. With email, I don't know what the state of email is now. Probably more emails are being sent, but within organizations, maybe people are using Slack a bit more, because frankly, that day-to-day level of conversation that you would have got in the office, where those key ideas and that sort of thing are being shared, maybe people are leaning more heavily on Zoom, on Microsoft Teams, on there was the other one as well. Google did one.
Google Hangouts.
Google Hangouts. But we'll only know whether things have got better or worse after lockdown, I think, because this is the exception. We hope. Yeah. We hope. Please be the exception. But yeah, I don't know. I my gut tells me emails not as bad, because entire organizations are now fragmented and requiring those ways of messaging that's a lot more instantaneous, and they're figuring out new ways to make that work.
And then there's the simultaneous conversation, like the chat one going on at the same time as we're talking.
Yeah, the irony. Yeah.
I like your comment, Duncan. You got to text someone No, I can't remember what he said now.
Yeah,
So,
message someone to say you want to talk
you
to them
gotta-
on the phone.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's so true. Can I call you?
That is absolutely right. There was some absolutely beautiful, like, can I just like say thank you for like everyone engaging, during my talk, because there were there were some cracking comments in there. I was like,
Wasn't that really off-putting though?
pardon me? Sorry, say that again.
Wasn't that really off-putting? Some of the stuff we were saying, I was like, I really hope he can't see it because I'll be waiting myself.
Yeah. Well, no, yes and no. Like, I don't know. I kind of like approach these things like as a group conversation, but I mostly do most of the talking, which is kind of just like me in real life. So it's yeah. Hopefully there are some takeaways, and it's not just like me on a diatribe and that sort of thing. But I do feel obviously it's worth mentioning, because there's so many aspects of it that we just take for granted, and I feel it's always good to know where these things came from. And it wasn't Russia that invented it to like destroy the United States. Like, yeah, let's give them email. You know, it was just another one of those things that just got way out of hand. You know, you talk to Tim Berners-Lee, and like, he couldn't possibly have imagined what the web would look like today. You know, and actually there's so many things about it that he's not happy with, that he's started a new foundation for, you know, like a new type of web, you know. But maybe if enough of these stories are told, then like the next time someone's sitting down wondering if they can, you know, get this fork into a plug socket, then they might stop and think, well, how can I do it safely? Where might it go? But this is where the job of like the futurists kind of come into it. So people like me that will go, what might that look like in 1,000 years? And then like, just hopefully people that are a bit more positive than me and not go, in 1,000 years it's going to be totally shit. Let's not do it.
I wasn't expecting you to say that. Sorry, Karen, what were you saying?
Well, I was just saying, can I just interrupt? I'm absolutely going to have to go, but thank you so much to Duncan and to Aaron. It's been really interesting talks. I think Jake had to go a little bit earlier, but yeah, it's great. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, Karen.
Bye. See you later, Karen.
Bye.
I just waved with my camera off. That's.
I've done that as
Thank you, Alex. I feel better now.
Well, it was more that I obviously take the camera off when the speakers are on, and there are points when I start laughing and like nodding, and I'm like, wait, no one can see this. This is for no one's benefit but me.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I know. But... no, but I'm quite expressive with the way I move my face. It feels quite strange I'm doing it on my own. I was like, it's like, do you ever do that when you're on a bus and you have like, you get really deep in thought and then you stop pulling faces, like you just want an argument?
All the
It's
time.
that sort of thing.
All the time.
Like, oh. So Aaron, when you went to the toilet, we started I can't remember how this came up. We were talking about, you know, this whole thing, and someone suggested saying, but there's a way of changing the frequencies of receiving emails. I was just kind of wondering, do you have any tool, ironically it's more technology, but do you have anything like that you could recommend as a way of us trying to implement these, you know, weaning ourselves off technology essentially?
I would go with, there's a great chapter in the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss when he talks about the low information diet. It's one of the, like, that along with you know, like spending 8 hours a day eating and 16 hours a day fasting, and also getting my iron levels up, like, for the things that have made me feel just better after a few days, like 2 or 3 days of the low information diet, you just realize how much more time you've got to spend thinking deeply about things, and how much of your time you spend consuming information that is not actionable. And so the low information diet goes like this. Turn off all the notifications on your phone. That's literally it. Turn them all off. Turn them, every single one. Turn them all off. Turn them all off. Because then what happens is, like, if it's like BBC News. So I used to have the BBC News notifications, and that's cool. But there's shit going on in the world all the time, everywhere. Right now, stuff is just happening that's newsworthy, and so you're constantly staying up to date with all of this information, which, whilst interesting, how does it help you do your job better unless you are in fact a journalist? You know, like, it doesn't. It's nice to know, but it doesn't help you. It doesn't help you do your job. How does it help you live your life better? Like, if it's really, really important, then there's enough people that you know that are on the low information diet that will tell you. They'll go, oh my God, XYZ's happened. Did you know? You know.
Yeah.
Or if
and
something
that's how you
really
find out.
serious happens, someone will ring you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if something not so serious happens, and the people will go, oh, did you hear about XYZ? You go, no, I didn't. And then they'll tell you. So it's, you know, it just, I used to get anxiety from, like, oh, shit, where's my phone? You know, I genuinely would be like, oh, panic. It was panic. And I don't get that anymore because I turned all my notifications off. In fact, I didn't turn them all off. I have WhatsApp, and my WhatsApp is pretty well curated. And when a group gets too much, I either leave the group or just put it on mute for like 8 hours or whatever. Email, hell no. Not getting email notifications. Like, having my phone would just not stop buzzing. And I just feel better. I just feel I'm just like more chilled. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's so simple, and it's like one of these things where that state of relaxation becomes addictive. So you don't want to go back. You actually enjoy when you think about what's happening, and then you realize that, well, hey, it's probably not actionable, or if it was super important, someone would actually call me. Like, you enjoy not going back to your phone and being like, oh, hey, I'm free of that now. You know, like, imagine if it just like rained every day, and like, I don't know, you were a smoker and you had to go outside, but there was some really weird legislation which meant that you could only wear a t-shirt and clogs or whatever. Like, the day that you quit smoking, you're gonna be like, oh, I miss smoking. But then, like, you're gonna look out the window and go, hey, I don't need to be standing outside in a t-shirt and clogs. That's my worst analogy ever. So
I love it, man.
live streaming.
You know, that's actually funny enough how I ended up basically quitting, because I couldn't be asked to go outside. And I was like, I'm not going to smoke in my nice flat. So eventually I just stopped smoking. I just didn't. I got used to not doing it.
Yeah.
Not the point you were making, but I just
no, but no, that is totally true. I had a similar thing. I was smoking until I got to university, and then I was like, well, I don't have much money now, so I'm gonna switch to rollies. And I couldn't be bothered to like make rollies, and so I just kind of
yeah, the path to least effort is sometimes a benefit.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah, I'm too lazy for addictions.
it just reminds me, I can't remember, Aaron, if it was you who said this or if it was Chris from Pentascope, but this idea that the best coders are the laziest because they make their
I think it was a Bill Gates quote.
Yeah, it's Bill Gates said it. I probably quoted it, and I think
right, and I just was like,
quoted
oh,
it
it's
as well.
So wise. Yeah.
Aaron
No,
said
smart
that, so,
lazy.
But it's that idea that the lazy you kind of have to feed, someone that's feeding into laziness is a good thing.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's the smart lazy thing. You've got this like smart, lazy, hardworking.
Yeah, it was you that told me
quadrant.
about this.
Yeah. Yeah, so dumb and lazy are easy organizationally.
Yeah.
You know,
I
they're
can't believe I
producing
thought
nothing
they're
and they're
not.
not smart enough to like to cover their
I was
asses.
oh my Aaron, he's got this really cool thing.
But yeah, like smart hard working is like the hardest. That's the hardest person to sort of manage. They're very driven and they're smart, but then they can be like, oh, I need to get this done, and actually sometimes you can end up overworking a problem.
Yeah.
Lazy hardworking are really useful because you're like, okay, we've got 1,000 of these that needs to be done by hand. Can you do it? And they're like, yes, I will do it, and they will do it diligently. But then smart lazy, they're like super useful and super frustrating, because like, so in an organization, for example, if so this is, I'd like to consider myself smart lazy, because there's so many times where something needs to happen, maybe a client's asked for something, maybe, you know, something else, and it requires me to do the work, and then my default is, how can I not make the work necessary for everyone, or B, if it is necessary, make sure that I don't have to do the work. And that was a game that I played for many years, and a lot of the time I would get on the phone and talk to a client and just be like, you sure you want to do this? Like, this isn't really gonna you know, move the needle, as it were, and like talk them out of doing that thing and being like, hey, do this thing, it's easier. And yeah, so it's like kind of, yeah, smart lazy is what you need.
See, I think that there is sometimes like a difference depending on like where you work as well, because I was watching a talk by this guy called Simon Sinek, and he talks a lot about the way that organizations are generally managed things since the 80s. And he said one of his quotes that he comes out with all the time is about a guy who worked in Caesar's Palace and another one of the hotels in Vegas. And basically the story is that he absolutely loves his job at one of the hotels and will go all out and do, you know, everything he needs to. He's a barista, and he just makes sure that everyone's happy. And the reason for it is because the management come round, like all sorts of levels of management will come around the hotel regularly and just ask, are you okay? Do you need anything? And he'll do his best to make everything great. And on the other side of things, he works at another hotel where basically he's just watching his back, because the only people that come around are trying to spot where you're making mistakes and pull you up on it. Yeah. So I think, like for me, I'm kind of one of those people that I'm either smart and lazy if I'm in a place where I don't have like the proper support. I spend a lot of time watching my back, and then on the other side of things, I know where I'm sort of given something and I can go over it and just get my head down. It just completely flies the opposite direction on that scale.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because that is like, that for me goes into the whole like incentivization thing, isn't it? What are you incentivized to do?
I'll drop a video in the chat for, he's got like an hour-long video, and it includes millennials as well. And it's a really sort of interesting social topic. And there's another one as well which kind of plays into this with it's like a TED talk, and it talks about these social platforms and how they are really useful, but they're only really serving the people that make them at the moment. And they've got like a really like a, I'm trying to think of the word, a responsibility to the people that use them to actually give us something back. So there's like a really good trade-off. And how Twitter's like how as a society we've made public places the way they are so that they serve people properly. So you wouldn't have someone like Twitter just shouted out in public all the time. That doesn't happen in the normal society. You don't have like people just shouting off one street corner.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really interesting. Yeah, like how do we design digital spaces so that they can encourage kind of certain behaviors?
Yeah.
Yeah, would you design a physical forum like, you know, would you do, it's kind of like the classic bullring Twitter almost, isn't it?
Well, this is how it works. Cities and towns have like been designed over like, I don't know, a couple of 100 years, I guess. Just to make it more well, to serve people, I guess.
Yeah. See you, Dave. Yeah. I feel compelled to kind of like lazy has a stigma, but lazy is like incredibly useful.
Well, this is the thing, right? I've worked in a few different businesses, and like a lot of the time, someone gives me a problem, and I'm like, or it's like manual labor, like data entry or something, and I'm like, so an example, right? I worked for an insurance company in Sevenoaks a few years back. And I kind of ended up in the fraud team. I'm generally pretty good with analytics and that sort of stuff. And they gave me the spreadsheet of like, it must have been 100 files to go through, do loads of like fraud analysis on these individuals. And the fraud analysis is lengthy. You have to check loads of databases and stuff. You'll check their Facebook and try and dig into that sort of stuff. And I'd gone through probably about 5 of 100, and I was like, nothing we can do on any of these 500. So, I mean, realistically, you've cut out like a fair percentage already. So, what's the chances that the rest of them are going to be crap as well?
Yeah.
So I ended up basically fetching some information out of our system that no one else knew how to do, marrying that up with the information that we got back from these solicitors that had sent us this list, which we'd already sent out a list to give us the juicy information we were paying for. And basically, I think there was probably about 3 out of the 100 that had any use. And the solicitors ended up coming back to me to ask me how I got that list in the first place. It really shows that, I don't know, what I find shocking in some of the businesses I've worked with is they're quite happy with just the status quo of, yeah, this is okay, we'll just plow through.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, and this is one of the kind of, I guess, the programming superpowers, isn't it? It's being able to. When I think of lazy, if I was to define it in a way that I particularly like, I think of it as an ability to identify meaningless work before that work is done. You know, and that's what I think about lazy. Like there's a requirement. Is that actually needed? Like, can we build the car with less parts? You know, fewer parts. Sorry. And that's partly driven by like. It's partly driven by, for me personally, partly it's driven by, well, I would rather be thinking of more and doing more interesting things. And it's also by this kind of like, I don't know, I'm not a fan of waste, you know? It's like, and that when you actually look at that, it's very much tied to efficiency, but efficiency overall, efficiency.
Yeah, it's kind of like an overlap. You know, you've got the 2 circles in the middle. There's definitely an overlap between lazy and efficiency.
But sort of segueing back onto email, it goes too far where people are like, well, I can save myself a little bit of potentially slightly uncomfortable interpersonal time and just send this email because actually I'm quite fast at typing, and it's, you know, it creates, you know, it's never one email. Who's ever sent one email? other than you're fired.
Isn't also with email as well, going back to what you said earlier, is that responding to an email as well is like a lazy way out of doing your job, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
It's easier to consume something than it is to create something. if you're that way, well, I think so anyway. But so it's easy just to switch over and read an email and respond to that or react to that, than actually proactively do something in the meantime.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
So you know how I made a joke that, oh yeah, Aaron, you should see if you can somehow have a longer Q&A session.
Oh, sorry.
Like we've been doing, I think this whole video is about an hour, possibly longer.
Jesus, that's
It's the
probably
longest
me.
video we've got. I should have known it would be Aaron Taylor.
Sorry.
No, I love it, but I do think I will stop now, if that's all right, guys, because I'm getting tired. But this was really awesome. It felt like we were back at the Quarter House, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, I miss it. Yeah,
Maybe everyone's slowly adapting after all this time.
We're just so excited we're not on our emails. Like, we must talk to each other.
Who's checked their emails while we were doing this tonight?
Not me.